phone sales for over 6 years while consistently reaching and exceeding goals. Dan received his BS in Public Relations and a certificate in Leadership Development from our Center for the Advancement of Leadership at UVU in 2009. So he is a Cal alumni, which is really cool for us. Currently, Dan leads Sandler Sales Training's business development efforts while also serving as certified Sandler sales trainer to a wide range of clients through the Wasatch Front. So before we introduce Dan, we're going to be sending around an email list for you guys to sign up, and this will be so you can receive the information that he talks about today, so you have a copy of that. So please help me welcome Dan Bigelow.
All right. Well, thanks for the introduction, Hope. And I was standing here earlier, and Jules said I had something on my face. I'm like, what do you mean? And then I realized she meant the projector was on my face. So again, my name is Dan Bigelow. I was sitting in the same room a long time ago in 2009. I graduated from Cal. And just so you believe me, does anyone here know who Bruce Jackson is? Yeah. All right, so there's good old Bruce Jackson and me when I got my Cal leadership. And I guess it's kind of fuzzy, but if you really want to look, you can see it says Cal in there. So a little bit about me. I was involved in the Cal Leadership Program. I graduated in 2009, and I missed the deadline. I probably would have graduated at the end of 2008, but I missed some deadline with paperwork. But anyways, a cool story with Bruce Jackson. He had a class that he taught called Finding Your Flow, and we had to make these vision boards. And I was kind of just checking the box, like, oh gosh, I'll do the homework assignment. But one of the things we had to do is create this vision board of like what we wanted to do, where we saw ourselves in 5 years. And I thought, all right, well, where do I want to be in 5 years? And I'd done door-to-door sales quite a bit, and I thought, well, heck, I want to master sales. I want to be one of the best salespeople I know. So I wrote it down on my vision board. And then I thought, hey, I want to be a corporate trainer. I want to go train other companies and individuals. So I wrote Master Corporate Training. And then the top one I wrote, be a consultant. So no joke, I actually did that. It was on my wall for 5 years. And I've been working for Sandler for a year. So like my dream legitimately happened. I learned a ton about sales. I now sell sales training. And we work with a lot of companies, coaching them on their business and sales process. So anyways, I just want to say this Cal stuff works. It's the real deal stuff. It's not just random advice that you hear and you're like, oh, that was good, and then you never use it. It's like, this stuff will change your life. So anyways, wanted to kind of jump into a little bit. Anybody here involved in sales? All right, let's try it again. Let's all raise our hand because we are all in some shape or form involved in sales. Let's try. Anybody here involved in sales? So a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm in computers and I don't do sales, or I'm in customer service, I don't do sales. But anytime you're trying to influence somebody or persuade somebody or teach somebody, anytime you're trying to help somebody discover, you're in this process we call sales. Does anybody here like being told what to do, like someone tells you what to do and you're like, oh, stop telling me what to do. Maybe your parents, you don't like it that much. So pay close attention today, and I'm going to show you a couple ways of sharing information, persuading, where people actually want to hear more, they actually want to buy, or they actually want to do whatever you're sharing. So in front of you guys, you all have this lesson learned form. I'm going to ask for two things today. One is to actually fill this out, write down some of your gems, the lessons you learned down. Everyone okay with that? And then it's a two-part form, so you're going to leave the white copy and take the yellow. And we'll compile these and put all these mega lesson learns together. So is everyone okay with that? Kind of writing down your gems and lessons learned on this? And then the second thing I'll ask from you is at the end, just make a decision whether or not you'd like anything else from me, or if there's a specific point we touched on that you want more information on. We can kind of handle that at the end. So anybody ever heard of Sandler training? Jules has. So Jules is a rock star. Jules was involved in Sandler about I don't know, was it 2 years ago? So when I was a client there, she was a client there. And anybody else ever heard of Sandler? So there's a lot of different sales methodologies out there, different schools of thought. And anybody here ever met somebody who's like a know-it-all? Like someone you're like, oh my gosh, that guy's a know-it-all, he's kind of annoying. Most of us, right? So true story. I did door-to-door sales. I sold pest control for a summer. I sold home security for a summer. I did really well. I was like the top rep on one of my teams. And I thought it was a big deal. I thought I knew sales. And my dad was going to this Sandler workshop. And I was like, Dad, it's going to be a scam. You shouldn't do it. And he's like, no, I'm going to go check it out. So I'm like, I better go with you so I can tell you all the reasons why it's wrong, and because I'm a know-it-all, I have all the answers. But I went to a short little workshop, and at the end I told my dad he has a construction business. And I said, Dad, you actually, that would help your business. You ought to do it. So on a whim, my dad says, why don't you do it with me? And so me being a know-it-all, I was like, I don't know, maybe, okay. My dad's like, I'll just pay for you to go through with me. So I went through Sandler training, and at the time I was working for a company called Paychex. Anybody ever heard of Paychex? So they sell payroll services, businesses. It's like business-to-business sales. And I was already doing well, but I went through Sandler, and I set a couple of records at Paychex for most revenue sold. And it wasn't because I was a big deal or some hotshot. It's just because I learned a better way. Instead of working hard, I started working smarter, and I had a process behind what I did. So in sales, most people kind of just throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. They go try a bunch of stuff, and then whatever happens, it's like, all right, well, let's see what works. Sandler training's in over, I don't know how many countries, but there's about 250 training centers worldwide. So I work at the one here in Utah. We do a lot of sales development, customer service, management, a lot of prospecting, work with a lot of law firms and CPA firms who, a lot of times a lawyer becomes, they open their own law firm and then they realize, wait, I need sales, I gotta like bring in clients. So kind of enough about us. I'm gonna ask you guys a couple questions and we'll kind of make this about you. On your sheet of paper, jot down what's one or two sales challenges that you have. It could be on anything related to sales. So jot down whatever that challenge is. And since George, let's pick on you. What's one of the sales challenges you wrote down? Dating. Let's throw George under the bus, why don't we? Hey, is anybody free Friday night? They could take George out, okay. But just kidding. George, what's one of your sales challenges?
Well, she took mine. So I would say I'm a waiter.
Okay.
So I try to like sell as much to my, like, as people that come in as I can to boost the cost of their price to
Okay.
augment my tip.
And could we say, like, how do you bring up other stuff, or they're giving you objections, they don't want anything else, they just want their ticket, or give me a more specific example.
Yeah, so like if I get them to buy a salad
Okay.
as well as a meal, then the price of their ticket will go up and so will my tip.
Okay, and what is the current challenge behind that? Like everyone you ask does that, or you ask people about it and no one does it? What's the challenge?
So it costs more.
Okay.
And so people are.
So we could say, and I'll write a bunch of these. So we could say, and I actually have a confession for you guys too. I grew up in an era of spell check, so I'd write whole papers for school, and then I just press spell check and turn it in. And then starting to write on a big board, I was like, oh my gosh, there's no spell check here. So George, you can heckle me if I spell anything wrong. So we'll say kind of, overcoming objections about price. Overcoming objections about price. All right, let's pick someone over here. Let's go. Go ahead.
So I worked at Wells Fargo all last summer, and the biggest thing that I had a problem with their sales is that I had a hard time convincing the customer that they should have the product. I knew why they needed the product, but it was always like a time problem. Like they didn't want to go sit down with a banker, or they didn't want to take their time because they didn't see the value in what I was trying to sell them.
Okay, and so would you say it was like a no-brainer, they needed it, but they just like, no, I'm fine, I just want to get this done.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Okay.
when you're, for example, when your children, like opening children's savings accounts, like it benefits them, it benefits their kids, but it's like another account to them, and they didn't want to go like sit down with the banker and open that up and worry about it.
Perfect. So if we were to boil that down, would you say they just didn't get it, they didn't see the value, or would you say they wouldn't give you the time of day to even listen to it? What would you say is the main
I would
challenge?
say that they didn't see the value.
Okay. So Let's hear a bunch more. So let's hear another challenge. People not seeing the value. And sorry for my third grader handwriting. It hasn't changed since third grade. All right, let's go right here in the tie.
Well, I guess making sure that the product or whatever you're selling is as good as the way you're selling it. Like if you're really good at sales and the product isn't as good, then they'll be disappointed after they buy it.
Okay. And could we say that as a salesperson, maybe the challenge is you're like, oh, should I sell this because it's maybe not the best? Is that the challenge for the salesperson? Where it's like, this is kind of a crappy product, and if you sell it, then you're kind of taking somebody for a ride. So maybe, can we call that like head trash about some of the products you're selling? Okay. So maybe not fully believing in your product. All right, let's hear a bunch more. All right, let's go to the front row.
So I sell cell phones at T-Mobile, and I feel like the hardest thing for me is staying excited and enthusiastic about the product I'm selling.
Okay, and tell us about that. It's hard to stay excited about it because...
Just because it's such a daily routine type of thing, you just talk about the same thing over and over and over again, where for the customer, it's brand new, but I feel like people buy off their emotions and how they feel.
Okay.
And it's really hard to stay, I guess you could say, just like super happy, like
Yeah.
each time a customer comes into the store.
Yeah, it's like Groundhog's Day for you, and you're like, oh my gosh, again, and it's their first time. So what do you want to call that? Let's call that keeping excited about the product.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear two more. In the white up front.
So I used to sell memberships at Barnes & Noble, and the hardest thing for me was closing the sale.
Okay.
You know, I give my whole spiel and then just kind of getting to the point where, you know, either they've said no and I'm still supposed to try and get membership. So kind of along with that is like meeting quota and, you know, closing the sale and being able to like meet that quota and
Yeah, it's like your company's like, hey, hit all these quotas, hit these numbers, and then the customer's like, yeah, we're going to just sit on it for a while. Yeah, we're going to think about it. And you're like, ugh. Right?
so closing the sale and making them do it. So they
Okay.
reach quota.
Great one. We're going to do that one today for sure. All right. Let's go in the back with the beard. That's a sweet beard, by the way, brother.
I think my biggest issue is I sell ideas more than I sell an actual product.
Okay.
So it's just the issue of how do you sell a vision or an idea rather than an actual physical product.
What are some of the ideas that you sell?
So I do film, so it would be pitching a script idea or
Okay.
just kind of the vision for how to do that.
Sure. So it's like, okay, a product, it's tangible, but an idea, like, it hasn't been created yet.
Right, yeah.
And why would you say that's kind of the challenge?
I'm sorry?
Why would you say it's a challenge selling an idea?
Well, I think for me personally, I see it perfectly in my head, but then it's articulating exactly what I'm seeing and having them understand
Okay.
exactly what I'm seeing.
Could we say helping them see the vision like you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get one more and I'll let George pick.
Daryl. I'm so excited to comment over here.
Mine is, how can we not appear as a salesperson?
Love it.
Rejection.
How do we not appear as a salesperson? What was the end part?
And constant rejection.
Okay. And tell us what's behind that. Are you feeling like in your situation where people are sensing the sell or they can see the sell a mile away?
Yeah, I sell for Vantage Marketing, Pest Control.
Okay.
And so door to door, it's like, okay, they come out, they see me. How can I appear not as a salesperson?
Okay. That's the...
And then constant rejection is like, oh, they see me, they slam the door, or I start talking and they just cut me off.
Perfect. And since that one was so good, what's your name, bro?
It's Daryl.
So I have a book here called Prospecting the Sandler Way. It's one of the best books in the world, and you just earned yourself a good book, man. All right. All right. Thanks, George. So I'm going to show you guys a quick little model, and then we'll jump into these and we'll go real fast. Is kind of typical sales. And life sometimes it's kind of about the questions we ask ourselves. So kind of a funny story. If I said to you guys, I said, let's say if I'm like Michael Jackson. Wasn't Michael Jackson one of the greatest recording artists of all time? What would you guys say? Yeah? Everyone's all, yeah? So let's say I switch it up a little bit and I say, Michael Jackson, with all due respect, wasn't he kind of a freak show? He had a lot of problems, a lot of weird stuff going on there, right? We all agree? No, not as many of the yes? Well, the same question, but I let it as in the positive, or the same kind of question, I let it in the negative. A lot of times interacting with somebody is the questions you ask is going to determine which way that conversation is going to go. So in kind of typical sales, I'm going to show you guys a model that's not Sandler, it's traditional sales, and then we're going to show you how to debunk it, okay? So traditional sales, if I went to Barnes & Noble right now, I was like, man, I'm terrible at sales, I got to go learn something about it. And I went and got every book in Barnes & Noble. Most of them would probably say this. Kind of step one is generate interest, qualify, see if somebody's interested. Kind of step two, hey, I found an interested prospect. These guys, they like my idea, they like the film script, or they like the T-Mobile phone, whatever. Step two is give them the presentation, the pitch, show them all the bells and whistles, and you give them all the specs. All right, and then you touched on this, is we get to the end of a sales interaction, and what are we taught to do? We're taught to close. And you go read books and you read the calendar close, the puppy dog close, there's like an infinite crazy closes. I'm going to show you a way to get prospects to close themselves so you don't have to use any weird techniques on them. But if somebody doesn't close, what do you try to overcome? Objections. You resolve concerns, you overcome objections, and then let's say that doesn't work. They're like, I need to think about it, I need to marinate on this. Then what do? They're like, call me next week. Follow up. So this is kind of traditional sales. Follow up. Everyone kind of agree, like, traditional sales, yeah, most things kind of fall through that. Well, I got some bad news for you guys. The buyers are kind of onto us. So this is how we sell. And let's talk about how we buy. Anybody here ever been to RC Willey? So you go online, you Google, hey, I want to buy a green forest leather couch. And you go and you see exactly what the price is, you know exactly what you're going to do. You're going to RC Willey to go buy this couch, and you walk in the building and the salesman rushes up and he says, welcome, 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 how can we help? And what do you say? I'm just looking. So what did you just do about your interest? You said you weren't interested, but who said it? You lied. But since we're in Utah County, let's say mislead. Mislead. But if we were out of Utah County, we'd say lie. Why do you do that? Well, you don't want to get pressured. You don't want some shady sales guy taking you for a ride. It's kind of self-protection. And part of the reason you do it is there's been all these terrible salespeople over the years, and they learned all these crazy techniques that you just want to people like to buy, they don't like to be sold. So you mislead, you lie. Has anybody ever been on a sales presentation and they saw that the prospect had all the competitors' information, like they were shopping it out like 20 different places? You're like, oh man, I thought I was the only one getting invited in. So buyers, they like to collect information. How easy is it to get a salesperson talking about their product or service? Pretty easy, right? Like less than 1 second, they're just like firing off like, oh, we do all this, here's the bells and whistles, and here's everything that you need. So it's pretty easy for a buyer that's like, I'm going to shop this out. Why don't I call like 10 vendors and get, how would they fix it? What would they do to solve it? So we have a term for this. You guys want to write this down? Is called unpaid consulting. Imagine like a lawyer who charges, hundreds of dollars an hour, but somebody calls him and is like, hey, how would you solve this? What do you recommend I do? And that lawyer is just like giving him all this advice. He's basically being an unpaid consultant. True story, at our Sandler office, we have all these TVs wired up. And we called in a technician guy to install these TVs for us. And he said, you know what, guys? Instead of me going through all this work and putting together a proposal, call my competitor down the street. They're going to come in here, they're going to measure it, they're going to draw a blueprint, they're going to see how much cable you need, and they're going to bring all that to you. He's all, just give that to me and I'll install it all for you. We're like, really? Like, so he uses his competitors to like give all this free information away, and then he took advantage of it. So kind of funny, right? Kind of crazy. So the question is, are you being an unpaid consultant? Is somebody talking to you just because they want to collect all your information, or are they talking to you just to get a price comparison, but they have no intention of buying from you whatsoever? So step 3 of buyers. Maybe this relates back to the dating thing. They commit to nothing. They're like, hey, sounds good, love your stuff, call me next week. Hey, it's a really great proposal. We'll have to bring this to the decision committee, and then they'll have 10 meetings about it. Like, they commit to nothing. So what does that mean when someone's like, hey, I'm going to marinate on this, call me in a month? What does that really mean? Not interested, right? And then this kind of probably relates to the dating thing too, is buyers, they hide. They disappear. You go to call them, like, oh, they told me to call them next Thursday. You call them, no answer. You're like, oh, let's give it a couple days. I don't want to be too needy. You call them again, no answer. And then you think, oh, maybe they're the younger generation. I'll text. You text, no answer. So here you are as a salesperson, albeit an unpaid consultant, but you're trying to generate interest with somebody who's like misleading about their interest. Imagine if you went to the doctor and like your shoulder really hurt, but you're like, no, my shoulder's fine. Everything's going good. There's no way the doctor's going to like be able to fix it. So you're trying to generate interest with somebody that's misleading. You're giving a presentation to somebody that's just collecting your information. You're trying to close somebody that's like, oh, sounds good, call me in a few weeks. You're following up with somebody that's hiding or disappearing. So we call this dysfunctional traditional sales. Anybody ever been caught up in this? Where do you guys kind of see yourself getting caught up in this dance?
Step 2.
Step 2, and tell me about that.
Because sometimes a person says, oh, I am interested at first. And then as you start to tell them about the product, they lose interest, either because they're just being polite, or because they're trying to kill time, or because they're waiting for someone. They will keep listening to you. And then, okay, it works. And then you get through your whole spiel, and they either get right to step 4, where they're like, oh, call me in a couple weeks, or they're just like, oh, that's great, I gotta go now. The person I was waiting for is here, bye. And you're like, oh, that entire spiel was a waste of time.
Yeah, like that person went from really enthusiastic to like falling off the face of the earth. So you can write this down. If you have an enthusiastic prospect equals warning sign. Someone's like, I love your stuff. You can just think like warning sign, enthusiastic prospect, something might be going on here. Let's hear 2 other people. Where else do you guys see yourself falling in this dance? You in the red tie. What kind of step do you see? I guess you both have red ties. You guys can pick who goes. No, you go first. No, you. Where do you see yourself falling short in this?
As far as being a salesman.
Yeah, where, like, what step are you? Yeah.
I think I used to work at a company called ClearLink, and basically what we did is we were a third-party company, and we would sell for AT&T TV, internet, and phones. And I struggled with usually overcoming objections. I was pretty good at assuming a sale and giving a pretty good solid presentation. But I did struggle sometimes with overcoming the objection and trying to, I guess, remain confident and sound like I knew what I was talking about, and just always provide a simple solution to their problem.
Great. So kind of falling short here. So looking at this for the whole group here, who's in control of this process? This prospect or the salesperson or the buyer? The buyer. Why is the buyer in control of this? Because why? Everyone's whispering like, someone.
They make the action.
Say that again, George?
They make the action.
Yeah, the buyer is in control. So you guys want to learn how to get out of this dysfunction? Yeah, woo! So I'm going to show you a couple things. So before we jump into it, let's say we're in a big sales pitch and I'm this big like CEO buyer of some company and I have my desk on a pedestal. And you're the lowly salesperson that walks in and I say, why should I buy from you? And it could be for any product or service. But if I said to you guys, why should I buy from you? What would you say? Throw up any answer you want. Why should I buy from you in the polka dot shirt?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
If you're the salesperson and I'm the buyer and I said, why should I buy from you?
I don't know, just give them the reason why your product is different than everybody else.
Okay, so we could say like the best product. What's in the black?
Maybe you could ask them the question saying, well, what are you looking for? So it's more of a, you're not saying everyone in the whole world needs my product, but what are you looking for? And then you help them see when.
This guy's a genius because that's like chapter 2. We're on chapter 1. I'm going to show you because he's exactly right. But hold on that thought because you're absolutely right. In the green shirt that says something. Why should we buy from you, buddy?
No, I just said to give him a book because
That's a good thought. Maybe we should. So why should we buy from you?
say what?
If you're the salesperson and I'm the buyer, why should I buy your product or service?
Depending on if my product is better.
Okay, so let's write a better product, the best product. Okay, they're kind of the same. Everyone short out as many as you can. So let's say like local service. Cheaper. Like the better price. Keep going. Experts. Give me 5 more.
More value.
More value. Warranty. Good job, green shirt. Warranty. Give me a few more. Why should we buy from you in the hat back there? Customer service. Great. Dude. More accessible. Okay. Accessible. Made in country. All right, so you can imagine most salespeople say stuff like this, right? All right, so let's say a story. Let's say you guys, you're a salesperson, okay? You've been working a long time, you make good money, everything's going great. And I ask you, why should I buy from you? And you give me these kind of answers, okay? Well, I got some good news and some bad news. What do you guys want first? Bad news. All right, bad news. The bad news is all of you are fired, okay? The good news is you've been hired by your most worthy competitor. So you were on the blue team, now you're on the red team, or maybe it was the red team, now you're on the blue team. And you're selling the exact same product or service. In fact, you got a little bit of a salary increase, and it's a little bit closer commute to your house, okay? So now we're in the same situation. I'm the buyer, and you're the salesperson, and I say, why should I buy from you? And what do you say? What do you say?
What are you looking for?
Close. So she's on the, so we'll jump into that. So you say the same thing, even if you're with the other company, right? So you're with company blue and you say all this stuff, and you go to company red and you say all this stuff. So with all due respect, it's a little strong here, but with all due respect, who cares? Right? Who cares about your features and benefits until you know if it actually matters to that person? So we had 2 smart people over here, and that's asking them questions to see what if it's even relevant. Ask them a question if it's important. Ask them a question if it's something that they want to have a conversation about. So kind of step one in this process is, we call it, oh, I just ruined everything. Oh, we're still here. Step one in this process, we call it, you can't read my writing, so I wrote all this up here. So we present too early, present to the wrong people, we're caught up in hope. Do you want to know what the most addictive sales drug is out there? It's called hopium. You're hoping you're going to get something, but it's just like never going to happen. So why should we buy from you? So write this down. This is number one, disarming honesty. I'm going to show you guys a cool little process you can go through. You can gain instant credibility in a sales interaction by saying something seemingly not in your best interest prior to saying everything in your best interest. So I'll say it again. You can gain instant credibility in a sales interaction by saying something seemingly not in your best interest prior to saying everything in your best interest. Why would you gain credibility by saying something not in your best interest?
Because they think, oh, I guess he doesn't care. Like you said, like, well, obviously this company does a better job. And they're like, oh, okay, like he's already making.
Maybe he doesn't care. And it kind of goes with what you guys said. Why should we buy from you? And you say, you know, can we take a step back and do you mind if I ask you some questions to see if it really makes sense for you guys to look at this? Is that okay? Like, sure. Or can we take a step back and I can ask you some questions? More or less credibility if you said something like that. Obviously more. Maybe you stiffen up the backbone and I said, why should I buy from you? And you said a little stronger and you said, you know, I'm not sure you should. Can we take a step back, figure out what your challenges and priorities are, and then we could figure out if this is something worth looking at? Is that okay? More or less credibility? More. Why would there be more credibility in that? Or in the black shirt?
It makes you come across more real and more like you were looking in their eyes, not what's going to benefit you.
Yeah, they're like, wow, this guy's a legit human being. Can you kind of tell somebody's being fake? You're like, oh, that's what they say to everybody. Someone's like, you're awesome, you're the best. You're like, oh, they probably say that to everybody. Think about a salesperson. So I actually wrote it down. So along with disarming honesty is be authentic, be real, be genuine. People can feel that from you if you legitimately care about them, or if you're like, oh, here's a dollar sign, I'm going to go close them. They can feel that. So before we go to step two, we call this upfront contracts. So it's not really a written contract, it's a verbal agreement. Have you ever gotten a sales call and someone just starts fire hosing you to death and you're like, oh my gosh, when is this going to end? Does that happen to anybody here? Upfront contract sounds like, hey, is it okay if I take 60 seconds of your time, tell you why I called, and you can decide if we keep talking? Or you're sitting in a sales interaction and me and, what's your name in the polka dot shirt? Chris, let's say me and Chris are meeting and I say, Chris, appreciate you inviting me in. You know, on the phone you said we had 45 minutes. Is that still the case? Good. Well, naturally you're going to have some questions for me. Obviously I'm going to have some questions for you, what you do, how long you've been in the business. You know, typically at the end of this interaction you have a pretty good idea of whether or not this is going to be a good fit. And if we get to the end and you decide, hey, this is not a good fit, are you okay telling me it's not a good fit? And then the other side of that is, let's say we get to the end, it looks like, hey, this might work, this might be what you guys want to do. Are you okay letting me know? And that way we can set aside the last 5 minutes and figure that out. Is that okay? So what am I doing there? One, I'm telling about the time, the agenda, and the outcome, but I'm giving him permission to say no. Is it possible that people don't tell you no because you don't ever give them permission? They're like, oh, don't answer that call because he won't take no for an answer. So a good outcome to a sales interaction is a no. That is a good why is that a good outcome?
Then you don't waste your time.
You don't waste time. Has anybody ever wasted a lot of time with something that was a no? If it's a no, when do you want to know? Like 6 months of following up and stalking somebody, or early on? Yes is obviously a good answer. Or this third one, we'll call it a clear next step. So in all your interactions, if you get a no, a yes, or a clear next step, that's a good outcome. But if I say, hey, I want to marinate on this for 6 months, is that a good outcome? If I say, let me put this in the budget for next year, and it's like a year away, is that a good outcome? Not really. A no is a good outcome. A lot of people in sales, when they hear that, they're like, that's crazy. That's a bad outcome. You can sell snow to Eskimos or a popsicle to, I don't know, a lady in white gloves. I'm sure you've all heard of the crazy stuff. So I'm going to show you a quick little video.
Hi, I'm Carl Graff with Sandler Training, and I'm here to talk about Sandler rule number 2, don't spill your candy in the lobby.
It works, guys. I tested it. Cool.
In the lobby.
It doesn't like full screen mode, guys.
In the lobby. So what has a spilled box of candy got to do with the sales call? Everything. When you go on a sales call, you take your box of candy. Your box of candy is your knowledge, your expertise. And salespeople are so anxious to open and spill their candy. When a prospect shares a concern that might be able to be addressed by your product and services, the salesperson launches into presentation mode, highlighting their features and benefits. They might throw in a third-party testimonial or two for good measure. Candy, candy, and more candy. While there's time to share your candy, of course, it's during the formal presentation, demonstration, process review. And that's only if you and the prospect together have truly understand the issues they're trying to resolve. In the initial phase of the sales call, leave the candy in the box. Your task is to fully understand the prospect situation. You have to make sure that you uncover the prospect's issues before you make your presentation. During the initial phase of the sales call, the candy must remain in the box. Your task is to uncover the prospect's issues. Your task is to ask questions to uncover the problems that need to be addressed or the goals that need to be achieved. Your task is to truly identify if your products and services will truly address and help the prospect. Your task is to leave the candy in the box. If you're routinely dropping off material, information, marketing material without truly understanding the prospect's buying motives, then you're creating the habit of spilling your candy in the lobby. Ask yourself this question: if they have your information, if they have your pricing, do they really ever need to talk to you again? Ask yourself, would they ever take your information and shop your competitors? Get enough facts to fully understand the opportunity. And if you get far enough through the development cycle to make a presentation, then open your box of candy. Yes, you should and can help the prospect. But the best way to help them early on in the process is to ask them questions, talk as little as possible, and get them to talk as much as possible. Your task is to gather the information, not dispense it, and save the box of candy for later.
All right, so don't spill your candy in the lobby. What the heck does that mean? Oh, here we go. This is incredible. It's working again. Here we go. Volume, it'll probably just keep playing, all right? Sorry about all the Wi-Fi usage if it keeps playing. But what does that mean? Don't spill your candy in the lobby. In the front.
Listen before you speak.
Yeah, listen before you speak. Imagine that listening is most people don't listen at all. So write this down as in a sales interaction, you should be listening 70% and talking 30%. What percent of the time do you think that telemarketer is talking when you get this random cold call? Like 99%. In the back.
I am a telemarketer. We give away free real estate seminars I got them. And don't get me wrong, I like my job, but there still is that moment where I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. And then at the end, I can tell they're just like, okay, thank you, bye. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and
I see how my script, I just talk so much, but that's just the way the company is, and
sure.
I wouldn't trade my job for anything, because that's what I do.
So if you were to make a little adjustment, what would you do?
My adjustment would be that I would shorten the way we present our scripts, and then add in more questions in appropriate places, so that way the ratio may still not be 70 and 30, but it will even it out just a little bit more.
Absolutely, and I bet if you try it out and you talk less, you'll notice it works more. So write this down. The less you talk, the more a prospect or buyer likes you. Kind of weird. But most human beings do not listen at all. Imagine, how does it feel if you go to the eyeglass doctor and you can't see, and the eyeglass doctor, you're like, hey, my vision's not doing too well, and he's like, he pulls off his glasses and he's like, hey, try these on, they've helped me for years. You're like, what kind of doctor is this? You're like, hey doc, can't see, buddy. He's like, well, try harder. You're like, you know, if you didn't feel like he was listening, obviously you're not going to stick around very long. So what is the real challenge or priorities that the prospect has that you're trying to solve, and do you even know what they are? How many times have you been in a situation where you had a problem, but somebody just jumped into presentation mode, and you're like, they don't even know what my problem is? Like, it's like kind of throwing a dart at a board if they're going to get it. So step 3 in this process, we're going to call this actionable pain. And George, you have those flyers if you want to pass them out for everybody. So actionable pain, to uncover the personal, compelling, and emotional reasons that motivate someone to take action. So behavioral psychology, David Sandler invented a lot of the Sandler methodology, but it comes from a lot of therapy and psychology. And you look at these lists, most people, they sell on interest and curiosity. So at the T-Mobile store or the real estate or wherever it's at, someone's like, hey, I'm kind of interested. And the salesperson's ears perk up and they just jump right into presentation mode. What's more powerful, somebody that's like in emotional pain and they need your product or service, or somebody that's like, oh, I'm just curious, well, how does it work? What's more powerful? Hopefully the pain, right? So I put these in order of priority. Pain in the present's the most strongest motivator. If somebody's in pain, do they care that much about price? If the water leak, like their faucets leaked and their whole basin's destroyed, and the plumber's like, what's the problem? They're like, there's a huge leak, just come fix it. They don't really care as much about the price. So write this down as people buy emotionally and they justify that decision logically. So if you're being nerdy pants and giving somebody all the specs and features and benefits of why they should buy your product or service, it's kind of a very logical thing. But if you're finding the emotionally compelling reasons of why they want your product or service, why they want the script, well, why on earth would you want the film script? Okay, well, and why are you guys trying to do this? And they're emotionally bought in, and then you have your logical conversation. They're like, wow, this covers both sides, the emotional side and the logical side. Gain of the present, that's like, hey, I want to go have fun, let's go to Disneyland. Gain of the future is, hey, I want to save up to go buy a boat to Lake Powell. So not everybody needs like a brand new Escalade, right? Why do people buy an Escalade? They want it, they think it's cool, they want to be like gangster, I don't know, there could be 100 reasons, right? But those could be maybe gain in the future. And I keep pressing the wrong button. So here are some pain questions. You guys can jot these down, and I can email these to you if you want. But let's do a little cell phone thing. So T-Mobile guy, you're still at T-Mobile, right? So I'm going to have you try this, okay? Pretend you're the salesperson. I'm just going to have you rattle all these down, okay? So I'd like to buy a cell phone. And say that first one.
Tell me more about that.
Well, my current cell phone, it's not working as good. I can't really utilize all the technology.
Can you be more specific?
Well, I'm Snapchatting all the girls, and it's not working, and it's affecting my dating life.
How long has that been a problem?
Well, I'm married, by the way, but I'm in real fun. It's been about 3 months. It's been pretty tough. Keep going.
Oh, what have you tried to do about that?
Well, I tried to call the AT&T guy, but they were just like selling me all this stuff. I didn't really know what they were doing, and I don't know.
Did that work?
No, it didn't work at all.
How much do you think that has cost you?
Well, that's cost me obviously not having fun on the weekends, and probably it's going to cost me my future marriage if I don't get this fixed.
How do you feel about that?
I'm frustrated, like I'm fed up.
Have you given up trying to deal with the problem?
I'm almost given up, but if you can help me, I'll do anything. Wow, give him a round of applause. Woo! So what's the difference between I think I want a cell phone, and then he took me down what we call the pain funnel? What's the difference? Which one was I more emotionally involved in? The pain funnel. So if I wrote on this, I'd write at the top kind of the surface reasons. And maybe in the middle, I'd kind of write, we could do this a couple different ways. We could kind of say the top would be the surface reasons, the middle is kind of the business reasons, and the bottom could be personal, compelling reasons. So recently a guy signed up for his whole company to go through Sandler. I'm like, why do you want to do it? And he's like, well, we could grow the company to 10 employees. And I was being real with him, not like using any technique, I'm just being authentic. I'm like, well, why do you want to grow the company? He's like, well, I want to make more money. Well, why do you want to do that? Well, I'm working 80 hours a week, and I don't like working 80 hours a week. Well, why do you want to work less? He's like, well, to be honest, when I was a kid, we didn't have much money, so I want my family to have money, but they're going on vacations without me. And so what I really want to do is have enough money so I can spend time with my family. So that's the real reason of why he wanted to develop himself. So think about this. When you talk to people, it usually takes at least 3 questions to get to the root of why they want it, but you could even go way deeper. So in the white shirt up here, what do you sell?
Well, I used to sell books.
Okay. So books. People could want books for a variety of those reasons. So hopefully that's helpful. You guys can cheat and write these down too. Here's a few more pain questions. Share with me what your priorities are. If you were to make any changes, where would you start? On a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with your current provider? What were you hoping to accomplish? I'm curious, is price the only criteria you're going to use to make a decision? So those are some pain questions. So do you guys have that little piece of paper that got passed around? So I'll crank through these last few slides. The next step would be budget investment. There's a story about David Sandler. He spends all day with this farmer. He literally spends all day, and at the end of the day, he's like, all right, Mr. Farmer, how many do you want to buy? And the farmer's like, I love your stuff, but 0, I don't have any money. Has that ever happened to you? You spend all this time with the prospect, and you get to the end, they're like, I thought it was like $3, and it's like $800. You're like, sorry, can't help you. So somebody needs money or investment. That could be with legitimate money or time. Maybe there's a certain amount of time they need to implement your product or service. The next step, and everyone has this sheet of paper passed out, so if you forget, you can look at this. But decision-making process. Have you ever had a sell, and at the end someone's like, I got to talk to my spouse. Or you get to the end, hey, I got to talk to my business partner. You spend all this time with one of the individuals. Let's say it's even a big sell. I one time remember a sell, there's a big IT company, they're now using Sandler, but the very first time we met them, we sold them, I walked away with a check, I teach this stuff every day, and the next day I get a phone call like, hey, hold the check. The CFO wants to wait 3 months before we start. And I was like, we just lost this in the decision step because there's this hidden CFO I didn't even know about, and I had a meeting with 3 of the owners, but there was still a hidden decision maker. So when you sell your product or service, who else needs to be involved in that conversation? Who else should be sitting at the table? If you sell one of the spouses and then the other spouse isn't home, what's that presentation going to look like? One spouse is going to give to the other spouse like, well, here's the price. Do you want to do it? What's the answer going to be? Like, probably no, right? So get the right people involved. There's legitimately a cast of characters like a movie. having all the key players involved in that conversation. So the next step, step 6, is called fulfillment. So they have certain pains. Your presentation is going to address those pains. So here you are in step 6. You have your little piece of paper if you want to cheat. You're making a presentation in step 6. What step are you making a presentation over here? Step 2. Kind of crazy, right? So this process is really heavy on relationship, really heavy on qualifying somebody. If somebody's not legit, maybe it's time to let them go, close the file. Then present a problem, present a solution to their problem. So this last step is called post-sales. Anybody here ever sold something and the person got buyer's remorse? Does that happen to anybody here? You're like, oh, I sold door-to-door all the time, like 11 hours a day. And the most painful thing is when you get back to the office and be like, oh, that one sale you had after knocking for 11 hours canceled. You're like, oh, that sucks. I just knocked 11 hours for nothing. Post-sale is a verbal rehearsal of, hey, I haven't pressured you or anything, have I? No. Are you sure you want to go ahead and do this? Yeah, absolutely. You know, some people will get a check and they'll say, this check, what does this mean to you? They're like, oh, it's this much money. Like, well, maybe we shouldn't do business together. This check is to solve all these problems we've talked about. Like, oh, okay. Maybe you really aren't that interested giving the check back. Like, no, please let us buy your product or service. This could be post-sale if what's going to happen when the red team finds out you're leaving and they lower their prices to keep you guys to stay with them. What's that conversation look like? Oh, well, I'll tell them I'm done with them. If they lower their prices now, I'm going to say you should have done it the whole time. So post-sale really is establishing emotional comfort that the decision they made with you was a good decision, and they're reinforcing it. It's not the salesperson steamrolling them and like, okay, this is good, hurry and sign it, we'll see you later. It's like, are you sure you're on board? Because I don't do buybacks. Are you sure you want to do this? So that's the process: bonding rapport, upfront contracts, paying budget decision, fulfillment, post-sale. So this is the same thing as what you have on your handout. I'm going to show you one more idea, and we're going to go really fast. Anybody here big NASCAR fans? I guarantee you are, buddy. Just kidding. Anybody here? I'm not. So let's say, what's your name? Nick. Let's say Nick's cruising around in NASCAR. He's going to win. He's going against Dale Earnhardt Jr., I think his name is. And you're coming around turn 2. And then you go down turn 3 and you're not quite making it, and you veer off the track and you crash and hit a wall over here and you die. Sorry, Nick. Where did Nick die if there's a wall right here? Genius. You guys are geniuses. So sure, technically he died when he hit the wall, but he died when he veered off the track. Any of you guys ever set like goals? It's like, this year I'm going to lose 15 pounds, and then it's like one day left in the year and you're like still 15 pounds heavier, and you're like, all right, let's lose it all today. It's probably not going to happen, right? If you're a farmer and you're like, I don't feel like planting crops this year, I'm going to put it off. And then like, oh crap, the harvest is tomorrow, let's hurry and plant them today. No, it's not going to work, right? So I'm going to teach you guys a fast idea. It's called cookbook. A few months ago, I came home, and I've been married for a year, and my wife was making jam. I was like, what on earth? How in the world did you know how to make jam? And she said, well, I just followed the recipe. How awkward would it be if, what's your name of the black tie? Cameron. Let's say Cameron is he's going to make brownies and cookies. And he's telling all of us, he's like, guys, I'm going to get really motivated. I'm going to make brownies and cookies. I'm going to use a lot of willpower. Yeah, that's kind of weird, man. Just follow the recipe, bro. Right? That's kind of how people approach sales, is they don't really follow the specific ingredients. They're not honest with themselves of what are the things I need to do to get a sale. So you sold door-to-door. What's the key behavior to do to get sales in door-to-door is to stay in the doors. If you want to lose weight, so here's a couple examples. Let's say you want to lose weight. You can use this little behavioral cookbook and say, well, I'm going to make a goal to drink a gallon of water and eat clean and work out 4 or 5 times a week, and you could track it because you did the behavior. Can you measure, if you say go to the gym 3 times a week, can you measure that? Let's say you want to be a farmer, and this was, I made this up, and being a good farmer, you got to feed the chickens and water the crops and clean the barn, right? And how often do you do that behavior? There's a daily amount, a weekly amount, maybe a monthly amount. So think in your mind, what's a goal or something you want to achieve? And then what's a daily or weekly behavior you could do to get there? It could apply to anything, getting straight A's. It could apply, everyone's joking about getting married, but maybe you put on here like go on 2 dates a month. Maybe it could be anything. Maybe you're studying for the GMAT because you want to get an MBA. So here's an example of what a lot of our clients do is they make a cookbook. And this one is like too many on there, but maybe you put 3 or 4 on your cookbook and you just track it. All right, my goals this year, I want to get straight A's and I want to lose weight and I want to, I have a hobby. Maybe your hobby is you do jujitsu, MMA or something on the side, whatever that is, you could track that. And if you do the right thing every day, you're going to get to where you want to be. So if I go eat McDonald's if I eat McDonald's, it's probably not a big deal, right? But if I eat McDonald's every single day, is that going to affect me? Yes. Probably, right? So all this stuff is easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. So if I give you guys one challenge, that challenge would be, think, what the heck is the goal you want to achieve in the next year? And boil it down to like 3 months. All right, I want to be here by 3 months. What do I need to be, breaking it down by month? And then what's my daily or weekly thing? And then just tracking it. And I can promise you guys, if you did something like this for your goals, you would blow them out of the water. So attitude, behavior, technique. What's more important, attitude or behavior? What do you guys think? Most people say attitude, it's at the top for a reason, but if I have a really bad attitude, I don't want to go like running, but I told my friend that I'd meet him on the corner and go running with him. I'm like, all right, well, I told him I'd go running. So you go run, let's say you go run 1.5 miles. How do you feel after you run? You feel better. Your behavior influenced your attitude. A lot of thought suggests that behavior precedes motivation. So when you look at challenges in your life, is it a behavior challenge, an attitude challenge, or a technique challenge? And it could apply to anything. So you're selling film discovery ideas over there in the corner, and something's not working, you could take a step back. Is this an attitude piece on my part, a behavior piece, I'm not calling enough people, or is it a technique piece? So we expand on this. We do a lot in Sandler on each of these. These are all the triangles. So attitude plus behavior minus techniques is working hard. Attitude plus technique minus behavior is working frantically without clear goals. Behavior plus technique minus attitude is just going through the emotions. So being successful is doing all 3. And before we wrap this up, let's hear a couple things from you guys. I don't know if you have that microphone. We'll just hear 3 or 4 questions. At the beginning, I asked you guys to make a decision or to share kind of a best practice. Let's hear a couple nuggets. Anybody can go. What's one thing you learned from today? All right, let's go in the back. Let's hear like 3 or 4, and then I'll show you guys one more idea.
Just to don't be afraid to lose the sale by being honest, because in that you might gain the sale and gain their trust.
Love it. You're like, hey, I'm getting the vibe. You don't really care about this. Like, no, I do care. All right, let's hear 2 more. Let's go with our brother in the polka dots.
I liked the pain triangle thing.
Okay.
So by asking just simple questions, you can get down to the real heart of like why they're doing it, and maybe through that, like they might not even know exactly why they want a new phone, but after you talk to them about it, they find out, oh, I wanted a new phone because I can't Snapchat all these girls.
Yeah. Well, thanks for T-Mobile, brother. Do you want to share something?
Yeah, that's kind of along the same lines. Like, I want to make sure before they walk out the store that I figured out what's relevant and important for them, and make sure I never let a customer go by without having listened to what their real problem is, why they came into the store, and being able to say, no, like I can let go of this customer. I can tell he's just really looking around. He's not here to buy anything. And I really like the question. I wrote it down right here. I think it was, is price your only criteria? So just asking the right questions for me, I feel like, and and not making it seem like I'm trying to sell them, but they are in control and they're actually buying from me.
Love it. You're more of a vendor than just some guy. And let's bring it home with the guy here in the black shirt.
I like the video we watched about the opening the candy, because I feel like it's easy when you're in a frantic mode or you feel like you're losing their interest just to throw the candy in their face. Maybe tell them all the features right there, but that usually just loses it and it just makes them not want it even more.
Yeah, great. Appreciate you sharing that. I think that deserves a book too. So T-Mobile guy, do you want prospecting the Sandler way or selling professional services the Sandler way?
What do you?
Well, they're both good. So I'm going to give you this one. And what was your name in the black shirt? Lance. Here you go, buddy. So last thing before we end this is at the beginning, I asked you if there's anything else you'd like to see here from us. If you guys want a book that I have, I can give you a digital format. Just write down on your form at the bottom, email me the ebook and I'll send it to you. If anybody wants to come to one of our sessions as a guest, there's a lot of business professionals in there, lawyers, CPAs, a lot of sales professionals. Or if anybody's interested in an internship, kind of write that at the bottom. And at the very bottom of your form, if you got anything out of this workshop, or there's someone else in your network or circle of influence or where you work that you feel might benefit from something like this, we have almost infinite content. Go ahead and jot their name down and we can reach out and see if they'd like to come as a guest or have a conversation. So that's it. Give yourselves a round of applause.